Anything?
Actually, I have one. When last week, Friday, me and the brothers went out, and let's see if I can find it. It was just a rock.
Is it a rock?
Okay, here we go. It's Ecclesiasticus 37, verse 29.
Okay. Ecclesiasticus, say again, sir?
27,
27.
verse 29.
Verse 29.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And your question is?
Now you've heard the phrase, we should not eat by bread alone. Okay. Obviously also meats, because I'm a meat eater. I love to eat meat. But obviously this right here is saying that too much is not good.
Let's read it, sir.
Be not unsatiable.
Quote it and read it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ecclesiasticus 37, verse 29. 37, verse 29. Be not unsatiable in any dainty thing, nor too greedy upon meats. Verse 30. For excess of meats bringeth sickness, and suffering will turn into choler. Now, I looked up the word choler. Memory served me. It was put you in the, what did it call it? It was here, let me look it up again, because it was in the meaning of one of four bodily humors identified with bile, believed to be associated with peevish or irascible temperament, anger, or irascibility. So it puts you in a bad mood. That kind of threw me for a loop. I didn't think meat could put you into a bad mood. But then again, I don't know anybody personally that would eat too much meat. But we all eat a lot of meat. People like me that love meat. We have to have a meat with everything. I could eat vegetables one day without a meat. The next day I have to have a meat.
But so let's understand the makeup of meat and the scriptures surrounding meat. Now, the scriptures, wherever you read the word meat, it always refers to it as something to give you strength. But it doesn't speak about meat as in something that you eat all the time. It was never the Most High's intention for us just to be solely meat eaters, because the original man, the first son, Adam, and all of the people surrounding him at that time, they were not meat eaters. They were primarily vegetarians, because remember, everything that you eat that is vegetarian, it's living. When you eat meat, you're eating something that is dead. And so the concept is to understand that you're eating to live. And sometimes most people eat the type of things that make them die. Meat will make you, too much of it will kill you. Did you read the last verse?
31?
Yes, read it.
Yeah. Ecclesiasticus 37, verse 31. By suffering, how many perished?
By doing what?
By suffering,
Yes.
how many perished?
Read.
But he that taketh heed prolongeth his life.
Exactly. So it already tells you what it does, what it can do, but it's now informing you, if you take heed, your life also is lengthened. Because you will find that the body can only take so much protein. And most of us, because of the way that we have been reared, and I say reared as in we've gone through much cultural changes, i.e., for those of us, when we're speaking about those who are of the Hebrew nation, those of us who are people of color, your taskmasters who were your slave masters, they were the ones who dictated the type of food that you ate. And the purpose of the food that you ate was only to do one thing for you only, to fatten you up enough to last. Not necessarily to fatten you up to make you strong. Because if you are fattened up to become strong, then you're then in a position where you are able to overcome your oppressors. And that's not what someone who has you in slavery wants you to do. If I have you in slavery, I don't want you to become stronger than me, but I give you just enough that will make you sufficient so you can carry out the work that is necessary. You'll find that all the way through history, all slaves eat what the masters give to them. And the masters always give you what they know will keep you alive just enough. And to this very day, we are still living that life. Mm-hmm. The foods that we're eating is keeping us alive just enough. But most of what we're eating is not conducive to the way that our bodies has been made up. Why we eat it now and we can be sustained on it is because we have had physiological changes done over centuries. But if it wasn't for that case, half the things we were eating in the beginning would make us sick. And many of our people, remember, did not even eat swine. It was detestable to us. Today, we can't get enough of it. In fact, we eat from the ear right down to the hoof. The tail and all. So we have become changed, and the meats that we eat is not good for us. Eat meat, to be quite frank, is something that we shouldn't eat a lot of. But what you also need to do, to be fair, is you have to observe the scriptures. If you look at the New Testament especially, what was the thing that you saw that was in a very common, it was a commonplace thing that Yahushua did when he went out looking for men? What was the common denominator for the men that he looked for in particular?
Fishermen?
Yes.
They were what?
Fishermen?
Fishermen. Now people miss that all the time. But that lets you know that the type of meats that they ate. Even further on, when you read the scriptures in the so-called synoptic gospels, you will read where when the 5,000 came and they needed food, what was produced?
Fish and bread. Okay.
So now you're getting an idea that the secrets for us living is in the scriptures, but we miss it. Our people are not into that.
Right.
You fling some shrimp on that now, we're going to eat all the things that can poison us, and fling a couple of lobsters and crabs. Oh yeah, but a fish and the quality of the meat, that's what he's showing there. In the Old Testament, when they showed any of the prophets who were on their last breath, so to speak, the angel would bring the meat. Even he ordered a bird, a dirty bird in fact, to bring the prophet clean meat. And that was only by a certain proportion, because remember, that bird was not going to bring a great big, 15 pound, or not 15, but 15 ounce steak to put in front of him. Right. So if the bird was bringing him meat, you could understand then it was bringing it in small portions, letting you know again that the amount of meat that we should consume, not in large quantities. Society today has taught you how to do that. And unfortunately, as people, we have become over excessive with it. And half the meat you're eating today, by the way, it doesn't die. In other words, it doesn't break down. Why do you think half the time people walk around feeling bloated? It's because the meat that's in you is not breaking down sufficiently for it to pass through your body. That's why you end up feeling very heavy. And that's why the key to changing that, you've got to eat more vegetables. But at some point in the future we'll talk about, all right, some of you in here, because you're medical people, what's the thing that comes, and what type of, not medical, but what type of chemistry, on the chemistry chart, what comes out of the vegetables that you eat?
Chlorophyll?
Yeah, but a little bit more than that.
Before it's cooked or
Hydrogen.
while it's growing?
Well,
Carbon.
yeah, but what's the water we spoke about at some point? Type of water we should drink.
Alkaline.
Mm-hmm. So much of what we should be taking should be the type of thing that should flush us out, empty us. Okay. And we're not eating things or even drinking things that will cause us to flush properly. Right. And that's why, you hear this more among women than you hear men, but men still complain about it. I want to lose a few more pounds, but I just can't seem to do it. It's because there's certain things in your body that it's not flushing out, because there's certain things you're not drinking or eating. All right, I think I need to stop that now, because we're talking more dietary. Let's get back into the word. All right, go ahead.
Regarding the teaching on Shabbat, on Sabbath, the caption was a captive church in the wilderness.
Yes, the captive church in the wilderness, yeah.
Did you finish it?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I was going to say, I don't get the title with what
no, I think it was too advanced for people that were here. It was too heavy. And I've done that in the past with you all, that when I find that there is a teaching that you're finding it hard to intake, both mentally and spiritually, I sometimes back off, and then I'll have to break it up in smaller portions and teach it in small portions instead of trying to give you a whole spread of it. The reason why that teaching is so important, because what I was trying to engage to you in your understanding is that, number one, the church did not start at Pentecost. You must remember that the church is only one race of people. The church is not everyone who has a church on the corner calling themselves pastor, vicar, priest, or whatever. That's not the church. The church is only one group of people, only, according to the scriptures. Let me prove it. Go to Deuteronomy 7. There's a lot that I wanted to go through on the Sabbath, but I realized it was just a little bit too heavy, and sometimes you have to take things another way. Maybe go a little bit left to come right. Now, there's a number of stipulations that was given to us. Begin reading from verse 1, if you please. I need a reader. Thank you. All right, let's see if we can move very quickly on this. Let's go.
Deuteronomy 7, verse 1.
Read.
When the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it, and hast cast out many nations before thee.
Hold on. Notice what he said. There's a land that I want to bring you into to do what? To possess it. So and by the way, what you're reading here is also future as well. Because right now, are you in the land that he wants you to possess? No. So then, when we look at this, read it from the top again, read.
When the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it.
So there's a land that we historically must possess. Now, Moses started it. Joshua continued it. But because of our disobedience, the Most High told Moses to give us some instructions. That is done in Deuteronomy 28 and 15. He tells us, 1 to 15, he tells us, if you do all the things that I tell you to do, this is what's going to happen. But guess what we did? We would not listen because we are a stiff-necked race of people. So, when we go back now and we're reading Deuteronomy chapter 7, he says you're meant to possess it. And read what it says next. And
had cast out many nations.
So the nations were meant to be thrown out. That's going to happen again in the future. Everyone who's in our land is going to be removed. They're going to be cast out. And by the way, they're not just going to be driven out. What's going to happen is that they're going to be burnt out. Because that land has to go through a cleansing or a purifying. Now when we read on, it says what?
The Hittites and the Girgashites.
Girgashites, yes.
And the Amorites.
Yes.
And the Canaanites.
Read.
And the Perizzites.
Yes.
And the Hivites.
Hivites.
And the Jebusites.
And the Jebusites. The Jebusites is where in fact, they were the original inhabitants of the land of the city of Jerusalem. So, read on, then it says 7.
7 nations greater and mightier than thou.
So he lets us know, these are the nations that are greater than you, that I'm going to have you remove them. Now, for the most part, he did let that happen. But we got arrogant. Read on.
Verse 2. And when the Lord thy God shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them.
Read.
Thou shalt make no covenant with them.
See, so we're not supposed to have a covenant. By the way, when he uses the word nation here, speaking about all nations, incidentally, in case you should think it's just these, it's all nations. And read on.
Nor show mercy unto them.
Oh, so now, when people turn around to you and say, we serve a loving God, he doesn't do any of those things. Well, you're in for a very stark awakening in the future. Because the same God you call a loving God is going to bring great pressure and great rigor on the nations of the world. Read on.
Verse 3. Neither shalt thou make marriages with them.
Now you're not meant to marry their sons or their daughters. You're not meant to do that. But read on.
Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son.
Read.
Nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son.
Read.
Verse 4. For they will turn away thy son.
Stop. What will they do?
Turn away thy son.
Now people say, well, no, I can change him. I can change her. Now, if the Most High can't, where do you think you're going to have the power to do that? You cannot change the nature of a person. Now, a person, and you've heard this before, but you know, this person really loved me. Yes, they love you, but they're not marrying you and your entire race. Are you understanding this now? It is true, some people will love you. They will love you. They will love the man or they'll love the woman, but they don't love everybody else that comes along. That's why when you're in relationships like that, that man looks at you like he really loves you. Oh, he really loves her. Yes, he does. But it doesn't mean because he really loves her or she really loves him that they love everyone else that comes along who looks like them. And you may have that strange in your head. How could that be? Yes, it's very easy. But continue. Read.
Turn away thy son from following me, that they may serve other gods.
Read.
So will the anger of the Lord be kindled against you and destroy thee suddenly.
And destroy what?
Destroy thee suddenly.
Destroy thee suddenly. Now, just to let's jump down to verse 6 for time purposes. Read.
For thou art a holy people.
Now you're understanding, it says you are a holy people. Now, why are we a holy people? Because we are the church. We're not trying to be. We're not forging our way to become the church. You are the church. You are the church. You were the church that was free, and because of your sin, he led you into captivity. So now we have the captive church in the wilderness. Read on.
Unto thy Lord, the Lord thy God shall have chosen thee to be a special people.
A special people. So now you're getting another understanding of who you are. A, you're chosen. B, you're special. This, by the way, ties the precept of that ties in with a particular scripture. Before we finish that verse, run to 1 Peter chapter 2 and 9. All right, if you have it, let us read.
1 Peter 2 verse 9, but ye are a chosen generation.
So it's letting you know that out of all the generations of people, you are a chosen generation. Read.
A royal priesthood.
So now he makes you know you are of royal stock. Read.
A holy nation.
And you're a holy people. Chosen, royal, holy. Read.
A peculiar people.
A peculiar people. Go on.
That ye shew forth the praises of him who hath called you out of darkness into his marvelous light.
Into his marvelous light. So back to Deuteronomy. Now you're seeing this is all of the ingredients of the church. Ye are the church. And that's why when you have all these other places that call themselves church, they're not church. That's why in the scriptures it says, when they come and say, Lord, Lord, he says, well, go away from me because I knew you not. The reason why he knows them not, because they were never chosen to be the church in the first place. If you were never chosen to be the church in the first place, how am I going to know you because you come and say, well, I go to church. I'm at church every Sunday. Oh, wrong day. You see, so you're beginning to understand it now, that the church are the people, the chosen people of the Most High. All right? Read on.
To be a special people unto him, above all people.
I'm sorry. I thought we were all the same. Read on. Read it
above
again.
all, to be a special people unto himself, above all people
Read.
that are upon the face of the earth.
So that means no one is equal to us. It changes the whole dynamics of it. And so then when we as people start to say, well, you know, anyone, no, I didn't read where it said anyone. It said only a chosen people, and they come with certain qualifications. They're royal priesthood. They're peculiar. What else are they?
Holy.
They are holy people, and they are a generation that he has chosen. So now, all of those qualifications does not meet every single person. And by the way, what we just said is in 1 Peter chapter 2 and 9. And he says that you are a holy people or special people above everyone that's of the earth. And notice here, he doesn't make a mistake and use the word world. Because if he used the word world, then he would only be speaking about a group or a special section or a country. Because those are worlds, like we have sports worlds and all of those things. Now he's trying to make it even more clear. Not world, earth. Because earth now means globally. And you are above everyone on the globe. That's powerful. Now, when you read verse 7, he uses a particular word again. And remember what we have been taught in Scripture, that a word that is used twice, it's a covenant. And whether it be a covenant for good or covenant for bad, it's still a covenant. In this case, verse 7 says, read.
Verse 7, the Lord did not set his love upon you.
Read.
Nor choose you.
Read.
Because ye were more in number.
So he lets us know about who he chose now. The word chosen has been used again. Go on.
Than any people. For ye were the fewest of all people.
We were what?
The fewest of all people.
The fewest of all people. So if we just stopped right there, you can see that we are indeed the church. So again, you must remember as well that we have been in captivity, and one of the things I was also trying to establish is the time frame. That I wanted to show you how, if we get the exact date of the Exodus, then you would know how to count back in time to signify when the children of Israel first were removed from Egypt. And then you got a timeline that you can work back to work out the dates and birth of the various patriarchs and prophets. Because one thing that is very clear, and that's what's beautiful about the scriptures, it gives you everything that you need. There's nothing missing here. Now, because it tells us when certain members of, or patriarchs or prophets were, they had died, it tells you their age when they died. So then if you use the age of when they died and count it back, it gives you a certain date period. Would you agree? So this is how you can count all the way back, and that's how on that chart you could find the age of or should I say the date of when certain individuals were living. That's what's so fantastic about it. Now, that I found that to be a little bit strenuous for you all, so hence the reason why I kind of pulled back a little bit, because I felt like it needs to be broken up some more. And I'm actually working on another way to bring it to you so that you can get it. So, but it will come easier, and I'm going to do it in bite-sized portions instead of making it one sitting. All right? Now, that particular teaching that you had was meant to take you into some other areas, and those areas was to also recognize that as a people of God, that the one who they call Ramesses, he was not the king of Egypt during the time of Moses. He was not the king of Egypt. To understand that further, let's see if we can find a scripture. Let's go over a scripture where that is. I'm sorry?
Numbers 33.
Say it a bit louder, please, ma'am.
Numbers 33.
Correct. All right. All right. So if you're there, let's read verse 1.
Numbers 33, verse 1. These are the journeys of the children of Israel.
These are the journeys of the children of Israel. Go ahead.
Which went forth out of the land of Egypt.
So now it's letting us know when they came out of the land of Egypt. Go ahead.
With their armies under the hand of Moses and Aaron.
Read on.
And Moses wrote their goings out according to the journeys by the commandment of the Lord.
Now, that's key, because it lets you know that Moses documented this. So when people turn around and say, well, there was no record, well, my Bible clearly says that Moses did what? He wrote. He wrote their going out according to their journey by the commandments of the Most High. So, and the reason why it's important that you get that, and again, we miss these little clues, is because when you're speaking to someone from some conscious group or whatever they call themselves, and they start to tell you, well, there's no records of when you guys left, and there's no record that there was any Israelite, because there are some who don't even believe that there's such thing as Israelites, and we are it. They believe that those who are Khazarians, they're the Jews, and they're the real deal, and we are different because we are Africans. And that's not true. Yes, we lived in Africa for a couple of centuries after we were expelled out of out of Jerusalem, 70 AD. So we lived in there for a couple of centuries. But then a particular group of Africans decided, along with the certain Edomites, to sell us into slavery. Because they knew who we were and they knew that we were different. And why? Because remember, if you study the west coast of Africa, the old maps, you will see on the map it has the kingdom of Judah. Because we were so blessed by the Most High that everywhere we went, we set up kingdoms. But not only that, that's why you also notice that there were pyramids, even in Africa. Who were the skilled builders of pyramids? No, the Egyptians didn't build one pyramid.
That was us.
That was us. We built them. That's why you can identify our people around the world. And here's the other thing. This is a misnomer that Christopher Columbus discovered. He discovered America. That's poppycock, humbug, and just utter nonsense. He did not. Because what you've got to also recognize is that during that time, there were, what do I want? Yeah. During that time, back in those early days, there were Africans, there were members of our tribes who were doing trips over to the Americas back in those early stages. That's how many of us knew where the other tribes were, where we discovered where they were. Now, history will not, or people will not tell you this. Because if they tell you this, it changes all of history. And guess why we we suffer it is because me as a man of color sitting in front of you and teaching you this, and even those of you online hearing me teach this, you will question me because of the color of my skin, and you may give a little bit more credulity to it because I may sound not like the average black man. But here is the joke of it. They're not going to teach you the truth because they don't want you to live the truth. Now when your own comes and tells you, it's for you to prick up your ear a little bit and say, okay, even if I don't quite accept what he's saying, let me go and do some research to check out what he's saying. Because why would I lie to my own people? I know why another group would lie to us. But why would I? When we're all seeking the same thing. Make a note of this. Write this down if you please. There was a man of African descent. His name was Pedro Alfonso Neo. Pedro Alfonso Neo. He was the navigator of the Santa Maria ship that Christopher Columbus sailed on. Now I know you've been told it was American Vespucci and all of the Americans who were the ones who discovered it. But the reason why his name was put forward is because they were never going to make a black man's name a part of the history of the discovery of so-called America. If a man is driving a car, who sees the things in front of him before anyone else? Does the passengers or the guy who's driving? The driver. Why? Because he has to be more observant of where he's going. Usually the passengers are having a good old chat. So it was this man. And why? Because this man that we have just mentioned to you, Pedro, according to history, he had already made the trip over to the Americas several times before. But the history books won't teach you that. Now you'll have an understanding why there was commerce, but not commerce that they wanted the world to know. Because this is why there were people who also built pyramids in South America. They find them. There are pyramids there. The reasons why those Aztecs and the Mayans and all of those groups end up being destroyed the way that they were was because they completely left the will of the Most High and started to do sacrifices, human sacrifices, where they would remove hearts and eat them and blah, blah, blah. They became cannibals to a certain degree when they did their worship. History only notes down the things that are negative, but won't note down the whole history as to how it happened in sequence. That's why we are challenged the way that we are. And our educational system here is flawed, incidentally, not just here, but all over the world where our people are. Because the wrong individuals are teaching you our history. People find that, and then there are groups who will turn around and say, you've just given a hate speech. How can I be given a hate speech when I'm telling the truth? And the hypocrisy of another group who doesn't want me to speak about our past will always want us to remember 9/11. Well, to the lake of fire with that. Because here's the thing. We have people who have died in the hundreds of millions, and there's been no remembrance of them. And unless we study the scriptures and correlate it with the word of the Most High God's prophecies, that's the only time then we begin to realize, we are definitely involved in all of this. Let's hit verse 3, if you please. And they departed.
Verse 3. And they departed from Ramses in the first month.
Hold it. And they did what?
Departed from Ramses.
Notice, it's telling you that they departed from a place, not a person. Ramses' name was put on a place 200 years later. Because the one who was in charge at the time of Moses, his name was what? I told you this last week, so let me not make it too easy for you. Anyone? Let me say it again. You got the note because you nearly say you were sounding it, so it sounds like you got it. T-H-U-T-M-O-S-E. Tutmoses. Yeah. So Tutmoses, and now you will understand where Moses got his name, because he was named. Remember, he lived as a son of the king, so you see where his name came from. But you've been under this this illusion that it was Ramses. Why? Because Cecil B. DeMille decided to make a film and have Ramses' name there. And Ramses had been dead 200 years earlier. Now are you getting an understanding of this? So then when we read on, it says that they departed from Ramses in the first month, on the 15th day of the first month, on the morrow after the Passover, the children of Israel went out with a high hand in the sight of all the Egyptians. Bring more clarity to that, go to Exodus chapter 1 and 11. All right, are you there? Okay, let's read.
Exodus 1, verse 11. Therefore, they did set over them taskmasters.
Hold it. Taskmasters. Remember what I said on the Sabbath. The church is Israel. They set taskmasters over the church. Is that not what they're doing even today? Nothing has changed. The locations may have changed, the players may have changed, but the system is still intact. Same methodology, just different characters now. And what was the taskmaster set over them to do?
To afflict them with their burdens.
Now, tell me, is the church not being afflicted with burdens even here and the uttermost parts of the earth?
Yes, sir.
Being afflicted everywhere. Oh, I've got a doozy come Saturday. I'm going to be hitting some very heavy issues on Saturday. So for those of you that tune in, I encourage you, please do, because I'm going to be talking about some things that's been long overdue, and we need to talk about it. And it's going to offend some, but then what's new? All right. And then it says,
and they built for Pharaoh treasure cities.
Treasure cities. The first one being
Pithom.
And that one, you will find that in the location of the Valley of the Kings. That's where you'll find that one. The other one is
Ramses.
Is what?
Ramses.
Right. So you'll see these are areas where they built the major pyramids for the kings and their treasure and those who would go with them into the afterlife. They understood what we also understood, that there is a life after death. They understood it. But remember, modern Christianity has changed much of that and caused us to think that, no, once you're dead, and then the judgment, where we're all going to be marching up to the judgment seat of Christ, and with these herds of souls walking, and that is unscriptural. Nothing could be further from the truth. Much of our people would struggle with this because, especially coming from Christianity, because you've been taught so well. And guess what? You love to believe your oppressors. If my name was maybe Olstein, and I was giving that little funny grin, you'd listen to me. Oh, he's so charming. And he's got some jokes. All right, let's go to Numbers. No, we've already been there. I was going to take to Numbers. Maccabees, first Maccabees. First Maccabees 13. And verse 28. Let us read.
First Maccabees 13:28.
In fact, before we read that, why don't you begin at verse 26, so that for those who don't have an apocrypha, we can lead it in so that they can get an understanding. Let's go.
Verse 26. And all Israel made great lamentation for him.
Read.
And bewailed him many days.
Read.
27. Simon also built a monument upon the scepter
Yeah.
of his father and his brethren,
Yes.
and raised it aloft to the site with hew stone behind and before.
Good. Read.
Moreover, he set up 7 pyramids, one against another.
Stop. Read it again.
Moreover, he set up 7 pyramids, one against another.
Now, who is doing this? This is us. This is us, our people. And why? Because I want you to see. People think that pyramids is just with the Egyptians. The Egyptians couldn't build, a cup of water if they wanted to. The reasons why this is us is because the Most High gave us the knowledge and understanding. They knew what they wanted, but they didn't have the ingenuity. The Most High gave us this. That's why we still could take the same technology of that time and reproduce it in the Kingdom of Judah in West Africa, over in the South Americas, and also in other parts of even over in the Australias. There's a great mount there that the Aborigines there built. Where would you get this knowledge if you all don't come from the same thing? Let's read on. Start again, 28.
Moreover, he set up 7 pyramids, one against another, for his father and his mother, and his 4 brethren.
Read.
And in these he made cunning devices.
Read.
About the which he set great pillars, and upon the pillars he made all their armor for a perpetual memory.
Yes.
And by the armor ships carved, that they might be seen of all that sail on the sea.
Read.
This is the scepter which is made at Modin, and it standeth yet unto this day.
Continue.
Verse 31. Now Tryphon dealt deceitfully with the young king Antiochus, and slew him. Verse 32.
All right, now, the reason why I wanted you to get up to that point, because I want you to show you that the skill of these things are what comes from our people. Does that make sense to you so far? Good. All right. Okay. Is there any other questions? I kind of jumped ahead, but... Any other questions? All right, let me deal with there was a group of people who were living, who conquered Egypt and were living in Egypt. What was their name? Hmm? Say again? Yeah, it was the right answer. That's why I keep telling you. You've got to open up and say it. But you know, be bold. Whether it's right or wrong, say it like you mean it. And if it's wrong, then you were bold wrong. All right. Scripture says, boldly we come before thy throne of grace. So, yes, we are bold in what we do. Scripture says to be as bold as a lion. All right, so, it is spelled Hyksos. And that spells? Hyksos. These were the people who conquered Egypt, and when they did so, they were expelled from Egypt many years later, 1518, roughly is a period, BC, and they did that, and they were the ones that were in charge, they were in control. That's why you find certain cultures are similar around the world, are similar to the Egyptians because of the influence that the Egyptians had. And one of the things that the Egyptians would do, they believed very much in assimilation. In other words, to wipe out another race, they would assimilate them. Very similar to the Babylonians. Because with the Babylonians, what they did was they took the best of what every race had, and they trained them and they took their knowledge. So please don't get it twisted when people tell you that Israel didn't know anything, because Israel did. That's why when the Babylonians, they took our young men such as Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, as well as Daniel. The reason who they later renamed as Belshazzar, the reason why they did that was because our young men came with a talent that was built into them. The reason why it's so important for you to get is because in the kingdom, when we go into the kingdom, you must get this absolutely parallel in your mind, that the inventions that we will come up with will be beyond the scope of their minds. You see, right now, you have been told this life. Remember, there are some inventions that the Most High allowed Esau to discover. He allowed it because it was part of his plan. And don't think that they discovered it because they were just so clever. And remember, and there are some things, by the way, that they discovered, that the Most High gave the authority to the devil to give them it. And they got it by way of witchcraft. Why do you say that? Why do you make it all spooky? No, I'm making it exactly what it is. Because there is a spiritual warfare. And remember, Satan, whether you wish to believe it or not, he's on the Most High side. Why? Because the Most High tells him what to do and he does it. And so when Satan went out now and mixed himself with Esau, his purpose was to get Esau to become clever and to slowly over the centuries work their way into becoming the dominant leaders of the world, which they have. And his job was to infiltrate them into different groups of people. So from Remember, he used all of the races from the Egyptian coming all the way down to the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Persian Medes, and so on. He used all of them coming all the way down to the Greeks. And then he jumps from the Greeks into the Romans, and then the Romans die for a period. That is pursuant to the book of Revelation. But the book of Revelation says, but he will be raised up again, meaning Rome will come back to life. And he has. Because Rome now is, modern day Rome is the United States of America. That's why when you look at Washington, D.C., everything there has a Romanesque and even an Egyptian theme to it. Why would they have an obelisk there? That's Egyptian. So what is it doing there? Because the Most High, again, remember what I said, the devil has received his instruction, and his whole purpose is to set up these markers. So now there's an obelisk there. And then in New York, there's the Statue of Liberty. The original one was meant to be of a black woman, because it was meant to appease the slavery. But they said, we don't want that one. We'll build our own. And so they built their own. And now they call it, by the way, they call it Lucifer. So you think the Statue of Liberty. Well, to the sightseers, it's the Statue of Liberty. But to the Illuminati groups, it is Lucifer, the bringer of light. And by the way, that's not a name. Lucifer is not a name, because we keep saying the name of the devil is. No, that's a title. The title. If you're a bank manager, it's a title, it's not your name. If you're a minister, that's a title, not your name. The same thing is with the term Lucifer, because you'll read even in the scripture where it's in the book of Revelation, it refers to Yahushua as a light bringer, using the same term, Lucifer. So some of you right there, you're going to have a problem. You blaspheme past them. No. Read the book. Are you with me so far? All right. So what you're seeing now is that there has been an infiltration by the enemy to make Edom smart in terms of his invention. Along the way, from the turn of the century, of the last century, which was going from the 1800s into the 1900s, you will find that our people was pivotal in many of those inventions. In fact, most of the inventions that were discovered, we never got claim for it, but somebody else took the claim for it. But you'll never know. Even Edison, light, you think it was Edison, but there was someone else who was along with him, but they don't teach that in school. Didn't tell you about the other black man that was alongside there who, if it wasn't for its element, no way that the light could be what it is. And also the same gentleman created a bulb that could never be outed. In other words, a bulb that could never be outed. You know the way that you buy a bulb and it goes out and then you're going to put another bulb in? Well, the original bulb that he made, it doesn't have the ability to ever lose its power. Now what you got to understand, no, you're missing it. What you have to understand is this. If the Most High gave that to this man back then, so that he could put light in and light would never go out, that's a fulfillment of the scripture. All right, that's gone over your head, so that's okay.
Oh no.
Because we would have places where we don't have, there's no such thing as a bulb going out where we live, in our kingdom. Oh, does your bulbs go out? No, ours don't. Because the man who invented the element happened to be a man that was of color. But they don't teach that in the schools, because the whole purpose is that that the Luciferian mindset has to be on all the people who look a certain way. Now, in telling you that, and again, I'm surrounding it too so that you understand why it was so important for those who captured us back in the 7 nations, or 7 conquerors over us, that they always took the knowledge of our people. And remember, our young men understood themes that their own people did not know. Is that not what happened to Meshach and his compadres? So here is the purpose. In the kingdom, we will come up with inventions, breakthroughs, that will be so far beyond the nations of this world. It will change the complexity of this globe. It will come from us. They're still trying to find a way to have continuous fuel. That's going to be in us. And we'll be able to say, all you need to do is to do this and do that. Now, the periodic table, that is, you all are familiar with the periodic table, correct? I need an answer. Yes?
Yes.
No? Yes. Good. Well, with the periodic table, we, by the way, in the kingdom, we will take them beyond that. Because that's what man has come to an understanding to know now. About the hydrogen and nitrogen and all of that. We're going to take them beyond that, to the degree that it's going to blow their mind. That's why you're going to be seen as gods in the kingdom. All right. Let me just finish up with this because time has far spent. I didn't realize it. But now the group that conquered Egypt and then were expelled out, they are the ones who were mistaken, and I don't believe it was a mistake. I believe it was purposeful. They're the ones that was used to believe that they are part of, or in fact, what the historians did, they mixed them in with us and said that they are one of the Israelites. They are the same, and we are not the same. They left out of they left many years before the the Israelites ever got involved. All right, I think I gave you a date. I was trying to remember.
1550.
15 what?
1518.
18, good. Good. Okay. All right, any other questions? Now, just to give you some framework that if you wish to do more research, there's a historian by the name of Mentheo, M-A-N-T-H-E-R-O, no R, just O, E-O. He's an historian that deals with ancient Egyptian history. And he will give you some understanding of when they ruled in Egypt. And they ruled around about, say, 550 years before there was before their expelling. All right. Okay. And if you look those things up, you should have enough information to kind of work with to go from there. All right? Okay. Now, some of you say, well, where do you get all this information? Well, in my Bible, it actually, I have a notes section that actually reveals that. I'm sorry? Oh, okay.
So who was the ruler of Egypt if it wasn't Ramses?
Well, remember, first of all, let's identify. The term Pharaoh only simply means king. All right, it's like there was another term that was used later on in Egypt. I think it's Antiochus Epiphanes. These are terms that are used to let you know who's in rulership position. So the term was used and passed on. Now Pharaoh is passed on. Now, the Antiochus Epiphanes, those were Greeks who were making themselves look and act like they were Egyptians. But the rulership of that time was the Tuts, Moses. You'll find that there has been, put these dates down if you please. Tutmosis I was 1525 to 1508. Then Thutmose the second was 1508 to 1504 BC. And then Thutmose the third was 1504 to 1450 BC. And again, when the king of Egypt died, this would have been Thutmose III, who died in 1408, who died and was in power from 1483 to 1450. The Pharaoh of the oppression, he was called. That's Thutmose III. Now, for me, this is why I like to have certain Bibles have certain types of historical concordance in them, or encyclopedics. I have about maybe 15 or 20 of them, only because some of those encyclopedics, you can't get them as a single book. You can only get them in certain Bibles, because certain individuals, when they got the rights, they got the right for that information as well. So this is how, if you're wondering how I got a lot of that information, through the scriptures. Okay? So you've got the dates, and if you find that historian that I mentioned and you follow that up, you will be greatly illuminated. All right, is there any questions from anyone? I think I've cleared up a few things from last week. Is that helpful? All right.
I didn't quite understand Lucifer as the title.
What do you mean? You don't understand?
Being a title. It says his name was Lucifer and he was cast out.
No, it doesn't use it. It never says his name was. Because it actually says that, in fact, and let me know, you tell me, where is it found in the scriptures? Don't want to make it too easy for you all. Where is it found in the scripture, the term Lucifer? I mean, I'll find it, but I want to hear one of you say. If you don't tell me, you won't discover it.
Isaiah.
You got it?
14:12.
Say it again.
Oh, Isaiah 14:12.
Isaiah 14.
Good.
Isaiah 14, 12.
All right, there's another as well, so let's see. Well, I'll find that one for you. Mark this one, okay. All right, let's read it.
How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning?
Mm-hmm.
How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thy heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation on the sides of
All right, so you're reading this, just so others can't hear right now. So this is what we will do. From verse 12, Isaiah chapter 14. Now, the reason why it's an important chapter to read, because it opens up a whole lot of doors that many of our people have misunderstood. When it's speaking there about Lucifer, it's speaking about a particular individuals. And the word Lucifer basically simply means Illuminati or light. That's basically what it's referring to, because it is a title, all right? And then as you read down, read if you please, verse 13 on down. In fact, start from 12, just go on down and stop at verse at 16.
Isaiah 14, verse 12. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mountain of the congregation, in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee, and consider thee, saying, Is this the man that made the earth to tremble?
Now, when it says that, it's really speaking about a group of people. That's really what it's focused on. Now, you have been taught that this is the devil and all the rest of it. But it's really speaking about a group of people, a race of people. That's why it says, Is this the man that made the earth to tremble? Letting you know that it's a particular group of people. It's a race of people. And it's going to be Edom. Because Edom is the devil. And remember, you'll read where it says that he took 1/3 of the angels. Now, I'm not going to get carried away with that. The 1/3 of the angels mean he took a particular group of the nations of Israel. The 1/3 being Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. That's the 1/3. You see? And because, again, we have not been taught that we are the angels. We are the ones that were heavenly and been taken. But you see, we don't understand this. We are heavenly creatures experiencing an earthly realm. You're experiencing this.
I have an article. It says the Catholic Church, which assigned the name Lucifer to Satan. Lucifer is a Latin word. Thus the name Lucifer means in the Latin language, light bearer or light bringer.
Correct.
But that is not what the Hebrew word Helium means.
Go on.
Jerome understood that Isaiah 14:12 is talking about Satan. There the Hebrew word Helia is used for Satan, and Jerome translated this word into Latin as Lucifer. This is a mistranslation.
Correct.
The Latin word Lucifer is made up of two words. These two words are lux and feras, to bear or carry. Thus the name Lucifer means in the Latin language, light bearer or light bringer.
Correct. So,
There's a lot more.
yes. In fact, you want to just get that and send it around to everyone. Right? Or if you want to email it to me, I'll send it out, but whatever you have.
Okay.
But the key with this is that they must remember that it is not what you first believed or understood. And isn't it something that when you get into this truth, how everything changes? All right, very good. I mean, everything changes. All right, we need to stop. Because I've gone way over now. All right, any other questions? No? Good?
I have just one more. When it said in the scripture, he didn't choose us because we were more in number.
Okay.
Actually, just because.
Back to Deuteronomy chapter 7.
Deuteronomy verse 7, chapter 7, verse 7.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that we were more in number rather than Edom, rather than Esau.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because oftentimes we always think that they're more in number than we are.
All right.
But then we can't
Let me explain that very quickly so you understand.
Sure.
When it says that he didn't choose us because we were more in number, it simply means this. He's now speaking about the children of Israel. Israel, as a nation, is still relatively small. But what people forget is this, was the promise that was made to Abraham. Abraham wasn't an Israelite. So then how does he become an Israelite? He has to be born again and come through the lineage line. That's how many of them who were of us come back through us to become the children of Israel. And can you imagine all those people who are going to be born through us and come back through that line? I see that's beginning to make making your wheels go berserk. I know it's heavy, but as I said, I only wanted to touch it. But
That's why it was so important and mentioned so many times that Abraham's seed would be like the sands of the sea.
Absolutely.
That's why it was so much emphasis put on it.
that's why he made it first a private audience with this man, so that he would have to understand, because he could not understand the scale of it. So he first of all said, look up. Then he said, now look down. Now there's a reason for that, because first of all, we must understand that when he had him look up, he's letting him know that the future of your ancestral bloodline is going to go beyond the galaxy. That's why he's saying to him to look up there. But whilst you're still here, the future of your bloodline is going to be more than the sand on the shores. So we're going to outnumber every nation. There will be no nation on this planet that will be more than that. Have you noticed? We are the people who are more, we're more than everyone right now. But we're told we're not, because we've been told this, like, you're Hispanic, you're Puerto Rican, you're from Venezuela. So they've split us up into making us believe that we're all different, but we're not. So we think that we're small, but really They are of the tribes. They've been whitewashed, they've been messed up by the Europeans, but the Most High is going to change all that. That's why he says, beloved, it does not yet appear what we shall be. When he shall appear, we shall be like him. Why? For we shall see him. He's going to make us look like him. Doesn't matter what your color is. But if you are of your father's blood, you will end up looking like who you're meant to look like. You'll end up looking like your maker. That's the first. The second part of that is simply this, that once he has done that, all of these other nations, because right now, when you look around the earth, it looks like, the so-called white man is more than everybody. Does it not look that way to you? It looks like that way to me, and I've traveled all over the place, and I see them everywhere.
They think they're becoming extinct.
Right.
Yeah.
But the truth is,
They are in prime positions.
they are going to be completely wiped out. They'll be here for 1,000 years, but they're going to build all our cities and build your mansions and fix up your gardens and your vineyards and all of that. They'll be doing some cleaning and all that business. Yes, all that will be good, because they're going to suffer the labor that they have put on us. And the scripture said in the book of Revelation that they're going to suffer it double. So whatever you thought your ancestry felt and you feel now, your worries, your stress, your pain, your break, they're going to get it double. And when they get it double, and then the Lord is ready, then it's to bind them up and throw them into the fire. And that's what's going to happen. And they will be completely destroyed. Now remember, it is the power of God in terms of his existence that's in them. So they can't die out completely, because God can't kill God. So his spirit then will have to come back again, but come back through one of the dark races. So that's how Esau's going to come back, through one of the dark races, and he won't even know who he is. Because there'll be no memory, and they most definitely will be completely destroyed. And only the other races, and remember, of a truth, there's only 18 nations that's in the world, of a truth, according to the book of the scriptures, and Genesis chapter 10. So once we see all that, that's where it's going to be. Everything's going to be put right. All right. Okay, we're done. So all of you who listened online, I hope I didn't confuse you too much. But as the weeks will go on, I'm sure we're going to explain it a little bit more and break things down more thoroughly for you. But continue to travel with us on this journey. And any questions, again, I want to encourage you, feel free, you can email or put it in the comment box, and that will be sent to me, and I will deal with it. Now, for those of you that said, well, I put something in the comment box and you didn't respond. Well, if it was negative, I'm not really going to go and answer your negative stuff. No. But if it's positive and it's something that you really want to learn, I will respond to you. Shalom. See you on the Sabbath.